Hi there, I'm Jen Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. If you're feeling drained, hesitant, stuck in self-doubt, or you just have a case of the vlogs, the Art of Badassery podcast is here to help you unleash your mojo once and for all. We'll provide you with tips, techniques, and real-life examples of how you can kick ass in all areas of your life. You'll learn how to flex your mental muscles, rise above fears, and turn setbacks into superpowers. So let's enter the dojo and let's get to work. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Jen Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. Before we jump into today's amazing guest, I just wanted to show you some quick swag that I made up. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see my Art of Badassery t-shirt. I'm wearing this for the first time on the podcast because I'm literally in Montauk right now, the day after my very first Art of Badassery retreat ended. I cannot wait to share with you all about it because I think it was one of the best things I've ever done. Truly. Yesterday, the retreat ended with 10 women going, I love you, I love you, I love you. And all these women didn't even know each other 3 days before that. So it was connection, it was health, it was well-being, it was fun. It filled my cup so much, and I can't wait to do it again. So if you are not on my newsletter list, please make sure that you get on it so you know exactly when I start to plan the next one. And you can get these t-shirts on the website under the shop button at jennifercassetta.com. Let's dig into today's amazing guest. Her name is Sandy Zimmerman, and Sandy is a mother of three, an inspirational speaker, author of Get Out of the Car, 9-time competitor on NBC's hit show American Ninja Warrior, and became the first mom in the show's history to finish the course and hit the buzzer. Sandy's a TEDx speaker. She's a National Judo Champion. There's so much more that Sandy's going to share with us. But first and foremost, welcome Sandy to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be on today. I think before we jump in, though, I need a little details about that retreat. Like I am in, it's sold.
Yes, I know. I didn't even tell you what we did. We did mindset work, martial arts, meditation. We did a walking meditation on the beach. I can't even begin. So you and
So
I
is this an overnight retreat?
3 nights in Montauk, New York.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
Magical place in Montauk where I grew up going. So there's like sentimental value. I got to show all these women Montauk, some of them for the first time. So it was really special. Hopefully you can come next time.
Yeah. So you can just find it on your website and just a retreat section there?
Not yet, but it's on under the blog section as of now. And definitely on social media. I've been posting it on Instagram all over the place.
Okay.
All right, Sandy. So Sandy's an American Ninja Warrior. Do you understand the significance of this? I am a martial artist. She is an actual ninja warrior. But Sandy, please, I want to know exactly what you're up to these days. And by the way, Sandy and I just met only like 2 weeks ago, right? In Spokane, Washington, at a Women's Council of Realtors event where we were both speaking. Sandy spoke and gave her story just a little bit, but I was like, can you come on this podcast and share more of the origin story? Because I think she's just so cool. She's so strong. She's so powerful that I just know it couldn't have been an easy road to get to where you're at. Is it?
Yeah. Well, I guess I've noticed in my own life is that any of the really great, amazing things are pretty much always a long, hard, tough road. But I've also noticed that is always been worth it.
Yeah.
And Ninja Warrior is in the same regard been that, when I had first started, it was really just a random chance thing that my son had seen it on TV and said, what's that? And I was just so drawn to it. And it seemed so crazy at the time. I was, I think about 38, 39, and I'm seeing these people flying around obstacles over water. And I just felt this pull of like, Sandy, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's where you're supposed to be. And I thought, that's crazy.
Sorry,
That's
Sandy, I didn't
crazy.
realize. So how old are you now? Can I ask that?
I am 48. I know
Okay.
these biceps don't look 48, do they?
No, 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 they do not. So we're the same age. I just turned 48 3 days ago, and there's no way I thought you were 48. And especially doing what you're doing. I mean, there's no way. I thought you were tops 38. I kid you not.
Oh,
That's
that's funny.
incredible. Okay, so you're gonna have to take us 40-ish years back and give me and the listeners an idea of how all this got started.
Yeah. When I think back on where it really originated, I immediately always go back to my sensei growing up. And I started judo, I was 5. And by age 6, I was in my first tournament.
Wow.
And we all quickly discovered that it was something first I was just naturally really good at. And if anyone knows anything about judo, you are literally trying to take your opponent, throw them on their back, and the flatter you throw them and the more force you throw them, the better, the more point you get. And if that's not enough, then you do submissions, you do arm bars, you do chokes. And in some crazy way, it really paralleled my life.
Mhm.
And, I grew up poor and on welfare and spent time in the foster care system. And I was already in real life learning to fall down and pick myself back up,
Yeah.
get knocked down and have to pick myself back up. And
Mm.
so when I started judo, it just seemed like, well, this is just really how life is, isn't it? That's what I'd been doing already. And so it came really naturally. And really, though, the turning point for me and how many times people and words have so much power in our lives in what we allow in and what we surround ourselves with. But by some miracle, I'd done judo. And at age 12, I had qualified for the National Judo Championship.
Wow.
And it was a miracle in itself, right? To have this poor kid who has grown up this way be able to qualify for the National Judo Championship. And the miracle in this too was that just happened to be the year that it was being hosted in my hometown, like a
Wow.
30-minute drive. So it was in Tacoma. We were living in Spanaway. And it still costs money though. And
Hmm.
so the first thing my sensei did was he took us around to different businesses. And at that time in my life, I was still a very shy, quiet, guarded little girl. So I would go with sensei to these
Who happened to
businesses.
be a judo champion.
Yes. Well, not yet, but I did make it to nationals at
Okay.
that point. But he took me around to different businesses and he would just brag about me. And I can't even begin to tell you, sitting back in the shadows and listening to someone speak so highly of you and gush about what I've been able to do and gush about my potential. And I just never had that at home. I never experienced that. And so just sitting there listening to him and saying, we've got to make sure we get this little girl to nationals.
Mm. Wow.
And and I could always tell when a business gave a really big sponsorship because man, guy we'd go out to the car and he'd be hugging me, picking me up. He was a really big guy, picking me up, swinging me around. And I could always tell when they really gave a big sponsorship to get me to nationals. And we ended up getting enough money to go to nationals and for me to compete.
Oh my God.
And that morning, my dad dropped me off at the Tacoma Dome.
Mm.
And I'm not sure what he had to do. I'm guessing, my parents were in survival mode.
Yeah.
So I would guess he was probably working, trying to make money, trying to get enough money to feed all of us kids. And
Right.
my mom was kind of in the same boat. And so I'm at nationals by myself, which
Mm.
when I think about that, I was like, I can't even imagine sending one of my kids to a national championship of any sort and like dropping them off and like, have a good day. See you later. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Peace out. Right.
poor little
And
Sandy.
and so I'm there by myself and Sensei's there though.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of stuff going on and not just worried about me. And somehow I'd made it through all the rounds and had made it to the finals. And it was just like everyone is going, who's this?
Mm.
Who in the world is this? Because everyone else had been on this circuit, traveling all over the country, competing. And a lot of them were surrounded by trainers, you know, all kinds of people and experts and coaches. And here I am. I had a gi, I had a belt, and occasionally had my sensei show up. And
Mhm.
so I get into the championship and I could tell that it was much different than any of the other matches that I'd had to that point. Like she had a game plan, she had strategy. Cause I had three moves. I mean, Bruce Lee would have loved me because he said, do a few moves well
Yeah.
instead of a whole bunch poorly.
Yeah.
And that's basically my game plan. I had three throws and they were either going to work or they weren't going to work. And so
Mm.
far they've gotten me the national championship and they got me to the actual championship of nationals.
I just love that as a metaphor for life. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to learn everything. Just have a few good moves, your secret
Mhm.
weapons, like I talk about in the book in chapter 1 of The Art of Badassery. It's like,
Mm,
yeah, and maybe that can relate to other areas of our lives as well. Just do a
yeah,
few things really, really well.
I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed thinking that, we need to do multiple things and do them the best. And it's like, really, if there's two or three things that you can excel at, I would take that rather than 20 things that you're kind of okay at any day, any
Love it.
day. And I just, honestly, in my life, I think that kind of has helped me excel because I've looked back at, I look at my own kids and they're like really good at a lot of things. And it's hard for them to decide, like, what do I want to do with my life? Or I was like, I'm good at one thing. I'm going to excel at that. Like as a kid growing up, I was like, I'm really good at sports. I'm pouring everything I have into that one cup because that's the one thing I have. But I ended up, really excelling at it. And so here I am at the National Judo Championship in the championship for the crown. And I've got my three moves. And this girl comes in and you could tell she knew my three moves. She'd been coached and she would block. So like in judo, I'm right-handed, very dominant, and I would go in for right-hand moves. Well,
Mhm.
she grabbed me in a left-hand grip, which doesn't allow you to do right-hand moves.
Uh-oh.
And I just was like, well, that's all I got. I'm just going to keep trying and keep trying. And I just kept fighting. At one point, somehow her head went into my stomach and it knocked the wind out of me.
Wow.
And I remember just hunching over, where you're in this panic of you cannot get that breath and you feel like you're going to die. And that's where I was. And I
Mm.
finally like took this big gasp and I've got tears in my eyes. But I will tell you, I knew how I mastered the art of getting knocked down and getting back up and
Mm.
getting knocked down and getting back up, both on the mat and in life. And so
Yes.
this, I think, would have been a death sentence for most people. But I just got up and I
Mm.
thought, you just keep fighting. Like there's still fight in me. And so we got back into it and I somehow managed to throw her. And
Mm.
then I ended up pinning her and I ended up winning the National Judo Championship.
Uh,
And everyone, including myself, was shocked,
yeah.
absolute shock. And then people are like, who in the heck is that?
Mm.
Like,
Little
um,
thing.
so then my other memory from that day is they had us up on the podium, right? And I'm standing next to the second and third place finisher. I have my massive first place trophy. It's one of the few things from my childhood that I've been able to salvage. It's still downstairs in our weight room. But I have this massive first place trophy and I'm standing up there. And I just remember I had such mixed emotions about it all.
Mm.
Like on one hand, I was like, I'm so proud of myself. Like, I can't believe it. I'm the national judo champion. I'm standing on first place with my massive trophy. And I was so stinking proud of myself. But then there was another part of me that was really sad because I didn't have anyone to celebrate with.
Aw.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh,
I get
um,
that.
I'm I'm watching the second and third place finishers, and they're surrounded. I could see their family and their friends, like picture after picture after picture. And I remember it really struck me of like, they look so proud of them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
look so proud.
Mm.
And that hurt because I thought, God, there's just no one there.
Yeah.
And I don't even have a picture from that day. I do
Oh,
have one from the next week, but back at the dojo, since they asked me to bring my trophy, and we did end up getting a picture together and one with the trophy.
nice.
But those moments in our lives that kind of change everything. And one for me, I got down off that podium and Sensei was there. And I
Mm.
go over to him, and of course he's beaming, and he does this big bear hug on me, and he grabs me, and he just looks me in the eye. You know, when someone looks you in the eye, you can just, they're like looking into your soul type of
Yes,
thing. And
absolutely.
he's looking into my eyes, and just with such joy and pride, he's like, Sandy, you could go to the Olympics.
Oh my God. Planting that seed at
And
such a young age is such a gift.
yeah, but did he know? Absolutely not. I don't think he knew that that was going to have such an impact. And
Mm.
that's where it's like, you just never know. When are you going to give or receive these life changing moments? And
Life
for me, that was
affirming,
such,
life
yeah.
affirming affirmations. I talk
Mhm.
about this so much, the power of our words, both outwardly and the words we use to ourselves,
Mhm.
right? But your sensei's
Mhm.
words, it's like changed your entire life.
It did. Because in that moment, well, initially, it didn't. Initially, I was actually really embarrassed. Like, I
Oh.
mean, to the point, you know, where you get so embarrassed and you can feel your cheeks get flush and warm.
Mhm.
And I remember feeling like that and it being so confusing, like
Mm.
not understanding, why am I so embarrassed? Like, and thinking, why did he say that to me? Why did he
Mm.
say I could go to the Olympics? And here is the incredible thing, it might get planted, but it might take a while to take root. And so we
Germinate.
planted it,
Yes.
but it did not take root. And so I remember just several days would go by, but it kept playing in my head. And here's where you have to be so careful about what you allow to play in there, or be aware of it and get the junk out and let the good stuff grow. But in there, it just kept replaying. Sandy, you could go to the Olympics. Sandy, you could go to the Olympics. And after a while, I just remember there was a moment where I just thought, God, maybe Sensei is right. Like, is it possible that Sensei could be right?
Mm.
And that my what I've been through, what I'm going through, really doesn't matter, and that we can all dream big dreams.
So
And that
one of the
was,
things that I remember from Tony Robbins saying
mm,
is the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you ask yourself. So you asked yourself a really
mm,
powerful question in those moments. Can Sensei be
mm,
right? Is this a possibility for me?
mm,
Um, versus what many of us do is just like, ah, forget it. There's no hope. That's not even an option.
mm,
I'm not worthy of it, whatever the negative thought is, but a good question, a good quality question can really change the direction of your mindset and therefore then your habits and your actions and your personality and then your destiny. Whew.
mm. I love that. You know, I mean, at age 12, I didn't think of that.
Right.
But as an adult, you know, what's amazing that just hit me when you said that is that, but now we can, like, intentionally ask ourselves great questions. I think I maybe got lucky. Maybe I got lucky and I asked myself a good question at 12, because I obviously did not know Tim Robbins. I did not know any, or, you know, any of those
Tony.
good questions, but, or Tony, sorry, Tony Robbins. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Tony Robbins, if you listen to this or you're a fan.
I'm sure he's listening.
Oh boy. I'm gonna get that call and that email going, girl, this is my name. You need to know it. Oh man. But yeah, so at age 12, did I know any of that? No. So maybe I got lucky. Maybe God was watching over me. That gut, that intuition was somehow, you know, just like, Sandy, you're meant for more. Like, I want you to hear this. I
Yes.
want you to hear this. And I think that was the big message in that too from Sensei, was like, you were meant for more. I had the bar so low. I was just trying to survive. And
Right.
I thought, you know, girls like me don't dream those kind of dreams. We just want to get through the day and not get hit, or get through the day and not go to bed hungry. There is no way
Oh,
we dream a dream of going to the Olympics,
right.
right? And that belief from Sensei started to change that. And it's so interesting that you say that. The idea of me asking myself a question, a good question, I think started to like help shape that. And I'll tell you what, I ran with it. I absolutely ran with it. I look at my life and I go, oh my goodness, since that moment, I have dreamed the impossible,
Mm.
literally, things that people would say, Sandy, that can never be done. And when I hear that, it makes me laugh now, because I think, oh gosh, I've heard that before, but let me just show you it is.
Right.
And in everything, I sit there and I think, so I struggled in school, ended up graduating with honors. That's crazy.
Wow.
People would say that's impossible. You are a struggling reader. How in the world are you going to graduate with honors? I don't know. I did it. I worked really hard. I probably
Yeah.
worked 10 times harder than everybody else. And I had teachers that were willing to help me. I'd go, hey, I'm not understanding this in the text reading. Can we have a conversation? We'd have a conversation and like, oh, totally makes sense now. And so I
Wow.
so I had also people that would help, that
Well, you
knew that
asked for
like
help. You
mm,
you acknowledged it. You asked for help, and people helped you, right? Then so there's a lot of things that you were doing right, and you cared. You had intention around what you were doing. A
yeah.
lot of kids just don't because they don't have any, either guidance or hopes or dreams or goals for themselves. If we can help
Mm-hmm.
kids
And I do
instill
think that
just
was a
that,
big part of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You had a North Star vision. You were going to the Olympics in some
Yeah.
version of your life, right? That was
Yeah.
one dream of yours that you were holding.
Yeah. And here's the sad but happy ending part of that. And so what was so exciting after nationals that year is they were for the first time going to introduce it as an Olympic sport in 1992. And so
Mhm.
it was like Sensei was like, let's do it. I mean, you are crushing it. You just won nationals and like let's do it. You could be the first group of people that get to do it as an Olympic sport. And
Wow.
so that's what we started to do. We spent a couple years. He designed workouts for me to do outside of judo practice, agility, strength, sprints, really powerful stuff that,
Mhm.
for judo, because it's actually kind of a lot like ninja, super intense for a short amount of time, 100% for a short amount of time, very intense. And
Right.
so we started doing that. We started training. And then at the end of my eighth grade year, and this is just kind of my crazy childhood, it was 2 weeks before the end of my eighth grade year. My dad said, hey, in 2 weeks, we're moving. Pack your stuff up. He said, each of you can have a little corner of the trailer. And then he said, and your mom's not coming with us. Like,
Yikes.
no discussion, no explanation. And 2 weeks later, we all piled into our Jimmy 4x4 in the driveway with our little trailer. And we're sitting in there. And dad says to us, so at that time, it was still left in the house was me, my older brother, and my younger brother.
Mhm.
And so he says to us, he's there, he's about to start the car, and he says, hey, we're going to take a vote. Do you want to go somewhere where there's four seasons, or do you want to go somewhere where it's warm all the time? And at that moment, I didn't know exactly what we were voting on. But in hindsight, now we know what we were doing is we lived in that, Spokane or the Spanaway area. And what we were voting on was when he started that car, were we going to head south to Arizona where it's warm all the time, or we were going to head east across Washington State towards Spokane, where there's four seasons. And so
Wow.
we're sitting in the car, and he asked us this question. And my older brother, Rich, he answered first. He loved the sun, and he's just like, I want to go somewhere where it's sunny all the time. And I had answered next, and I thought I really like four seasons. I would love for like us to experience that, because in Spanaway it's mostly just like rain or you get a little bit of sun. And so I
Yeah.
thought four seasons would be cool. And so it comes down the deciding vote to my little brother, who's 9 at the time,
Oh my God.
on where we're going to head. Right. And so we're all just waiting. What's Jimmy going to vote? This is the deciding vote. So finally he votes and he says, four seasons.
Oh my God.
So dad starts the car, backs out of the driveway, and we head east across Washington State towards Spokane.
Wow.
And immediately at that time, it was like, we're sleeping in the car. We had no idea where we would end up. Dad would get a loaf of white bread and bologna, and that's what we ate for days. And dad tried to get someone to sell him a place to live, but he had no money. So
Right.
we hit Cheney first, which is just before Spokane. Of course, no one wants to sell him anything. Goes
Mhm.
to Spokane. We spend a few days there. No one wants to sell him anything in Spokane. And I remember him just getting really frustrated. And he said, well, fine. If no one's going to sell me anything here in Spokane, we'll just head up north to Canada. He's like, I bet you someone in Canada will sell me something.
Oh my God.
So we start heading north towards the Canadian border. And along that route, there are small towns all along the way. So he's still like, might as well try. So he would stop in all these small towns, sleep on the side of the road in the car. We did get one night, and I distinctly remember it. We came across a place called Blue Slide. It's like a very rustic resort of sorts, and it
Mm.
had like a few little wood, cabins along. And so Dad just asked the guy one night, could we, would it be okay if we just parked the car here and slept?
Mm.
And I think the guy felt really sorry for us. And so he gave us the cabin closest to the road for one night. And it was such a memory because at that time, it was like I took the longest warm shower I've ever taken in my life. And I got
Aw.
to sleep in a real bed.
Mhm.
And then we got up the next morning and, we continued north towards Canada.
But
And we
meanwhile,
were,
sorry, at this point, are you like, oh my God, I just left sensei back behind. I no longer can train for the Olympics. Like, what's going through your head about that?
mhm. At that time, it hadn't hit me yet.
Okay.
It hadn't hit me yet. It just was like such a crazy childhood that when you're in the midst of it, it seems normal.
Mm.
Now, when I look back, I'm like, that was insane. That
Right.
was so crazy. And like, I just can't imagine having my child about to go to the Olympics and then going, hey, let's go live in our car for a while and try to
Right.
find a place to live elsewhere. Like,
Right.
it's crazy. But at the time when you're living in crazy, it doesn't seem crazy.
Right. Right. Did you ever f
So,
figure out why your dad had to made that decision, or had you guys make the decision? Why he
yeah,
chose to leave?
yeah. I mean, he never really explained it, and this was also my family. Like, you just kind of brush everything under the rug. And he used to always say, like, you don't let the right hand know what the left hand is doing, which honestly meant he had no plan. He
Hmm.
just literally was on the no plan. And that's what we were at. That's where we were headed. And
Right.
I think he had worked in that area, and I think he just was like, I want a fresh start. He's used to being, military. He moved around a lot. So he's like,
Okay.
let's get up and move. We stayed here too long. And so I
Okay.
think he just got that itch, and then we were all just at his mercy. And then
Right.
my mom, I think at that time was finally at a point where she was like, I'm tired of this crazy. And for the
Right.
first time in her life, she was actually working, and she had her first paycheck. And I
Mm.
think she was just like, I'm tired of the crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go along with this. And she ended up staying. And that's a whole story in itself,
Sure.
if you want to touch on it later. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we're heading up north to Canada, and we get to a place where there's someone so desperate to sell their double wide trailer
Mm.
that they end up selling it to Dad with no money down. And so we end up in this little town, called Ione, Washington. And I will tell you, as an eighth grader being pulled from your school and your friends, I
Right.
was mad. I was
Yeah.
so mad. I was so angry. And then we get to this little town that's a cultural shock to go from, the Spanish area, very diverse, so many people, to this little town.
Right.
And I was just like, where are all the people? Like, there's nobody here. And so I spent that summer trying to look for kids my age,
Yeah.
and getting plugged into things. But I will say, in hindsight, another game changer for me was we got to Selkirk High School. And that's where it really hit me of like, my judo dreams are over.
Mm.
There's no dojo. There was not another dojo within 100 miles of this little town in the middle of nowhere. And that to me is when it really hit me. I was like, that dream of going to the Olympics literally died when Dad made that decision to
Right.
just get up and go move. And especially when we ended up in a little town with no club. And there's no way Dad could pay to drive me into to try to do lessons, even twice a week or whatever it is. And I think I just learned to fight and survive so much that I thought there's got to be something else that I can pour into. And I met the basketball coach up at Selkirk and his wife, and they ooh, became my new sensei.
Hmm. Oh my God. How
Uh,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You've been so blessed to
And
have these mentors in your life. And
um,
I mean, I hope that we can all look back and point those people out, the people that have changed the direction of our lives, our beliefs, our thoughts about ourselves. Um, you know, I'm tr I'm trying to think of that young. I can't really think of a whole lot, but I can definitely think of people later in life. But you've been blessed now twice as a child with this. That's great.
even more so than that, honestly.
Mm.
But that was another moment where, um, I remember my freshman year at Selkirk, and I was still like dealing with the anger of like this new place and getting used to it. But I remember him pulling me aside one day and he's like, Sandy, if if you work really hard, you could earn a scholarship to play basketball at the Division 1 level.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, I don't even know what Division level 1 means, but it sounds good, coach.
Yeah.
It sounds good. And eventually I learned, what that meant. And I just worked hard. So I went from pouring myself into judo and having sensei to pouring myself into basketball and having
Okay.
Coach Kane and also his wife. Like she was just such an incredible example. And like just seeing their loving relationship too, I thought, holy cow, is that what it looks like? A healthy, loving marriage. And so it wasn't even just basketball that impacted, it was like all of it, all of it.
Mm.
What does it look to like to invest in another human being? you
Wow.
know so it was all of it, and I just think, gosh, I think I've kind of spent my life like paying it forward. How
Mm.
can I be a sensei? How can I be a Coach Kane for other people? And
Wow.
God, it just gets me.
Yes. Well, that's black belt in badassery right there, folks. This is why I have Sandy on the podcast because this is what we do, right? When we get to that black belt level, it's about, okay, now it's time to give back. Now it's time, right, to step up and be a leader in the world, make the world a better place. Otherwise,
yeah,
what are we all doing here?
yeah, yeah. So
Incredible. So
yeah.
so did you ever make it to the Olympics? No, but you went to
So
college.
I never did. So that dream died.
Okay.
And but I did pour myself into basketball, and Coach Kane was absolutely right. If I worked hard, I could earn a full ride scholarship, and I
Wow.
did to Gonzaga. And
Amazing.
that was my ticket. That was my ticket out of poverty and a rough life. I thought I can now go get a great education, and I can go play basketball at the highest level that you can play,
Wow.
and that changed the trajectory of my life.
Wow.
And he helped me get really good at basketball.
Mhm.
And and so another, you think of these moments that just kind of change everything, and that for me was a big one.
Yeah.
And then trying to decide like what do I major in and what do I do now. And at that time it was like I wanted to continue what Sensei and Coach King did for me. And I thought,
Mm.
how do I do that? So I became a teacher and I became a coach.
Aw. Makes
And
perfect
I
sense.
Yeah, and I spent 23 years doing that. And it
Wow.
was amazing and it was wonderful. And then I think that that whole idea of, really having impact on lives hit me a couple years ago. And I just felt in my gut, and I felt a calling of like, yes, you had 23 incredible years teaching, Sandy, and
Mhm.
you have impacted so many lives coaching, but now I have something bigger for you. And I
Wow.
have a way that I want you to impact even more lives. And that's scary.
Yes, it
And that's
is.
when I felt a calling to like leave that career. And it was 23 wonderful years and successful years. I mean, I got inducted into the National Teacher Hall of Fame. It was just, I got Coach of the Year. And it was like, you want me to leave that? And it was comfortable, to be honest with you, at that point. And as soon as I threw out the word comfortable, I knew it was time to leave.
Wow.
I knew that that calling was right, and that I needed to make this leap. And it
Mm.
was a leap. It was a huge leap of faith and belief
Mhm.
in myself, of that this was the next thing, and
What?
that I could even impact more lives if I became an inspirational speaker to share my story to millions and authored a book.
Okay.
And I laugh at it because here and again in my life, I feel like I've been called to do the impossible.
Hmm.
Let's take a shy, quiet, timid little girl and let's put her on a stage in front of thousands,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And then let's take a little girl who struggled in school, has a hard time with reading, and let's call her to write a book. I mean, I just feel like, up there in heaven, there's got to be a table, and God's sitting up there, and all these angels are just laughing like, hey, let's do this with this girl named Sandy. And they all just think it sounds impossible. Yes, let's do it.
So let me just ask you though. So you say when you have a calling, because we throw that around a lot, right? A hit it of intuition. I got a calling. Like What does that sound like for you? How did that come to you specifically?
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing. And I think it's a blur, a mixture of probably like gut, intuition, God, the universe, whatever that is for people.
Right.
But like for me, honestly, Jen, this started way back in college,
Yeah.
25 years ago. It was my freshman year at Gonzaga.
Hmm.
And I'm walking up the back stairs. We just finished a preseason conditioning workout. I'm walking up the back stairs out of the Martin Center. And I reach that top step. I can just remember it like yesterday. I go to step to that top one, and I just hear this like really quiet voice, like in my head of Sandy, share your story. And I
Wow.
immediately was like, hell no.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I had this whole conversation. Like, no way. And I remember thinking, no, my story is sad.
Hmm.
It's painful. And I
Hmm.
honestly thought people would judge me and
Hmm.
people would run and not want to be around me if they knew my story.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for over 20 years,
Hmm.
a day would pass, a week, a month would pass. And every once in a while, I just hear this like calm, like voice in my head, like, Sandy, share your story.
Mm.
And I would immediately shut it down. 20 years, Jen, because really started that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and I
I
and
believe
what
it.
strikes me about the voice is it was never like pushy or judgy or condemning me in any way. It was just like this quiet, patient voice of like, Sandy, when you're ready, share your story.
Beautiful. I love that so much. So I want everyone listening to just remember that intuition, universe, source, God, again, whatever you believe in, really does. It speaks to us. And
Mm,
whether it be in actual words and sentences like you had, I don't have instances that I can point to like that, but I definitely had feelings. So it could be
mm,
through feelings, it could be through
mhm,
words, it could be through visuals. You could
mm,
see yourself doing things. And I think that's more what I had. I saw
mm,
myself speaking on stages
mm,
way before I had anyone a voice to it that
mm.
didn't come from me, you know?
Yeah,
So just a reminder that intuition and source speaks to us in many different ways. So that's so
absolutely.
beautiful. So so the book came first before American Ninja Warrior? Like where did the American Ninja Warrior fit into all?
Yeah. Well, and here's where saying yes to crazy things, even though you don't understand quite why, you don't, know how it's going to turn out. So that's how American Ninja Warrior was. I felt this calling again. Like that's where you're supposed to be, Sandy, and that's what you're supposed to like. I just couldn't, I tried to honestly forget about it because I thought that's crazy. I don't want to do that. But
And
I
how old were
couldn't.
you at that time?
Around 38, 39 was when I
Like,
started.
okay.
Yeah. Crazy in so many ways, right?
Yes.
And so I couldn't shake it though. And so when I, here's where that, you know, if something calls you, I mean, I guess now I just feel like, what's the worst case scenario? I mean, let's just go for it and see what happens because I felt like so like drawn to that. And I
Mm,
tried not to because I thought it seemed so crazy. Plus, honestly, it was scary.
yeah.
And that was another impossible. It was like, hey, you have this fear of failure and looking stupid in front of people. Let's go have you do a show called American Ninja Warrior where the failure rate is 100%. And so, but I jumped in and
Yep.
and what was so crazy is when you jump in and you do hard things, you're going to have growth. And
Mhm.
that's what was happening. It wasn't my intention. I literally just thought, hey, I'm going to go inspire my students maybe to be more active. Let me go try this show. But what
Wow.
happened is it started to change me from the inside. And I
Mm.
didn't think, I mean, it changed me from the outside a little bit. I mean, I've got some great abs and biceps now.
Yes. Yes, she does, folks. You need to tune into YouTube.
But what it started to do is change me on the inside. And it was just such an incredible journey of growth. And so about 2 years in, I heard that voice again. I'm downstairs in our weight room working out, and I heard that voice again, Sandy, share your story. And it was the first time in those 20 plus years where I paused for just a second to consider it. And then I heard the second part, which was, but Sandy, it has a happy ending. And I immediately sat on that bench and tears filled my eyes. And I just out loud remember repeating myself, Sandy, it does have a happy ending. It does
Mhm.
have a happy ending. And it
Wow.
was in that moment that I knew I have to share my story.
Beautiful.
This is my next calling. This is what I'm supposed to do. This voice has been preparing me for over 20 years patiently. And
Mhm.
now I knew in that moment, I've got to get on stages. I've got to share my story. And then later on is when the book came. And that was when I had this feeling that I could even impact more lives if I would put it in a book. But then I
Mm.
fought that too because I thought, gosh, I can barely read. Why would I need to write a book? And that whole journey to writing that book, but it's a book I can read. And that was, I think, what it was meant to be. And had I been a great reader, it probably would have been above everybody's reading level that it needed to be at. But I thought I needed a book I can read. I wanted in short chunks, short stories with pictures so people can visualize it because that was my problem. I'd
Yeah.
read things and couldn't visualize it. So it is a book that is a standalone story for each chapter that has a lesson.
Hmm.
And I do think words impact and words change lives. And I do 100% know without a doubt this book is going to change lives. And I think everyone who reads it is going to have at least one chapter that they're going to go, wow, that's my aha moment. That's my hinge moment. That's one of my moments in my life that's going to change everything. And
Yes.
I think if you share it with a friend, it's going to do the same. They're going to have at least
Amazing.
one chapter that does that.
And the book's name is, again, I know we mentioned in the beginning, but
Get out of the car. And when you read it, you'll understand the meaning behind that.
okay, awesome. Oh my God, Sandy, thank you so much for sharing all of your story here on the Art of Badassery. I'm inspired by you. I can't wait to read the book. When can we see you again on American Ninja Warrior?
We just finished filming the latest season, and last I heard, it is going to air again in June. So that'll be a new
Oh.
episode in June if people want to tune in. But if people are dying to see my abs and biceps, you can YouTube me and watch some of my runs.
Oh, I watched a little video of her and it's amazing to watch. And again, if you never heard of American Ninja Warrior, and I'd be surprised if you're listening and you haven't heard of it yet, but it's a really cool competition show where you're gonna see Sandy like going across monkey bars and falling into water and pits, and it's like, what do you call those? Like what's like what would you call a competition like that?
Yeah, I mean we're basically doing obstacles over huge pools of water, swinging from things, running across things. And you got to mention that the buzzers at the end are a pretty big deal. So,
Yes.
so we like to try to get some of those buzzers on the course and finish it, which is really rare. You know,
Yeah.
when I had hit the buzzer, I was only the 13th woman in the history of the show. So the show had been on 13 years. Only 13 women had hit a buzzer. I happen to be the 13th. And guess the age of all the 12 women before me?
I'm sure
20s,
younger.
young
20.
20s. So it was a big deal. It was a really big deal to be in my 40s and hit my first buzzer and be the mom. And I'm excited for people to see because here's the thing with that. You know, you see someone do something like that, and after that, they had more applications for women
There you
applying
go.
for the show than ever. And if you tune in, you're going to see some more records broken by women and moms. So I'm really excited about
That
that.
is so cool. And that's an effect in lots of areas in life, right? It's like you
Mm-hmm.
become the first and then you're just the first, but there's going to be so many
Lucky.
more after you because people are seeing you and saying, why not me? Why not me too? If she can
Mm-hmm.
do it, I can too. So
Now,
you,
that's a good question, Jen, right there.
exactly,
Why not me? And if not me, then who? Why
exactly.
not me?
Why
Love it.
not me, folks? That's a perfect way to wrap up this episode. Why not me? And let's, in fact, name it that. So before we go, I have four rapid fire questions that I like to ask all my guests. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm gonna do it. Here we go.
With speed. Uh, what was your favorite food as a child?
Ooh, my mom's fried rice.
Okay. If you could have a drink with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be and what would be in your glass?
Ooh, I'm gonna talk to Sensei again.
Oh, I knew
I'm
you were
gonna
gonna
talk to
say
Sensei
that.
again. Yeah, why you gotta ask me that, Jen?
I'm
Trying to make
so-
me cry again?
What are you two gonna have together?
Oh, we're gonna have a chocolate shake. I think that guy like to drink chocolate
Okay,
shake.
that's funny. I know this is silly, but I'm like in my head, it's like Mr. Miyagi. So I was picturing you having like green tea or sake with him.
No, he's a big dude. He probably like a chocolate shake. So would
Okay.
I.
Never mind. Okay. And then third is, well, do you have a favorite self-help book besides your own?
Oh, I mean, I honestly, because I'm a struggling reader, Jen, that's a hard question. So I'm
I
going to
know.
say I have podcasts that I listen to that I absolutely love, that have really changed me. And I love Dr. Rob Bell has one that
Oh
is
yeah.
a mindset one that I absolutely love. And I've been on his podcast, but powerful stuff.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, we could switch to podcast for you. We got that. And then last but not least, what's your favorite hype song? What keeps you going? What gets you going?
Ooh, I'm going to say High Hopes.
What is that? I don't know them. Do I know it?
It is my theme song.
What, who's it by?
It is by, I think, is it by Macklemore? And then someone else sings with
Okay.
them. But it's
Okay.
just about how powerful hope is. And I
Okay.
really think back on my life and how that was why I kept trying and getting up again, is because that little bit of hope is all we need.
Ugh, God, Sandy, you're gonna make me cry now. Thank you so much because again, the martial arts metaphor is all throughout the art of badassery. That's what I base my entire framework and body of work on right now. And just to see it reflected back in your story as well, just makes it even so much more powerful for me. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us and with the world. And I'm going to tune in and I can't wait to see what happens in June, when you hopefully hit that buzzer again. Thank you. Where can we find you and follow you, Sandy?
Probably the easiest would just be to go to sandyzimmerman.co. Yep.
Perfect. And she's on Instagram too. At
Yep. Sandy Zimmerman Ninja.
Wonderful. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please rate the Art of Badassery podcast, leave us a review, and find us on Instagram. Tell us how you liked this episode and what you learned from it, and what great questions you're going to start asking yourself from now on. Thanks again.